Hello, Sonia.
Hello, Lilou. I'm so happy to see you.
Me too. It's so good. I wish it was in person, but this is already good through Skype. I went through. I don't remember last time we met, but I think it was in Paris in
It was
2012.
in Paris.
Yes, and you went through quite a journey since then. I saw your book, the Walking Home, where you describe your whole journey, the healing process you went through and you put yourself into, I guess.
Yes.
I want to talk all about it because you're this, to me, you're one of the greatest, spiritual teachers out there. You actually, it's very precious to my heart, our connection, because you were one of the first ones I've interviewed and done all those Skypes, and we met in Chicago many times, and I've learned a lot from you, and I think you have embodied a lot of what it takes to be this authentic human being, and you keep on, like Wayne Dyer, keep on amazing. I'm just amazed at how you take on this journey and you keep on reinventing yourself, and this is a big one, right? Can you tell us what you just went through?
Well, it started a few years ago, Lilou. Just a little background. I've been teaching people about their intuition and following their spirit for 35 years. And it's been quite an amazing experience. It's been fulfilling. It's been uplifting. I'm good at it. I've enjoyed it. I've been around the world. But a few years ago, in the course of really about 6 weeks, being one of 7 kids, and we're all born 1 year apart, my older brother, 1 year older than me, died in his sleep suddenly. Oh. And I was so shocked because I had just spoken to him. It was going to be his birthday in a few weeks, and we just had this conversation that he wanted me to get on the DVD, the Rolling Stones DVD, Shine a Light. And I just ordered it, and the next morning I got a phone call that he died in his sleep. And it was shocking. But my father was so shocked by this because he had been a troubled soul. He had a lot of addictions, and he had mental illness as a result of his addictions, and my father was his caretaker. But the shock of my brother dying caused my father so much stress, and my father, who was never sick a day in his life, died 6 weeks later, just like that. So I had 2 back-to-back unexpected deaths in my family, and what happened was I've been married for 30 years, and my husband and I had always had a bit of a combative relationship because I wanted him to be on board with spirituality and with expansiveness, and he really fought me. We struggled, and it was sort of my noble commitment that I was going to hang in there and we're going to make it work, and it really was very stressful, but he always knew me to be a person who was strong and creative and resilient, and all of a sudden I was just splattered on the floor with these 2 deaths. And he didn't know me in that context and didn't have the ability to meet me at that place. It was too overwhelming for him. He was not able to absorb this part of me, and so he left. So in that 6 weeks, my brother died, my father died, and my marriage imploded. And I was absolutely bereft with grief and with anger, because I had felt that it's like, wait a minute, I'd spent my whole life working so hard to be this spiritual person, to do my work, to show up the way I could show up, to be uplifted, and all of a sudden, all my life fell apart, and people responded to me in a very interesting way. A lot of people were like, "How could this happen to you?" As though being a conscious person or being an intuitive person would make me exempt from being a human person. But I kind of bought into that a little bit and felt sort of ashamed of myself. And friends even that I turned to count on some that had been very close friends just weren't there for me. And I was devastated and filled with anger and filled with grief and filled with shame. And I just prayed on my knees, and because I knew I couldn't be in front of people. or teach people or uplift people at this place. It wouldn't be authentic or in integrity. So I quit. I quit my work and I prayed for guidance. And in the course of trying to work all this out, I did some kickboxing and I actually shattered my kneecap in the course of that. So I was in a wheelchair. It was pretty humbling. And my guidance, which I do know to trust and honor, said that I was to leave everything and walk the Camino de Santiago, which is an ancient pilgrimage across Europe, across Spain. And I was to go alone and I was to go in silence.
Wow.
And I didn't know how I would do it. I didn't even know how I could physically manage it, but I know guidance. So I said yes, and I set off with just a prayer, because, I mean, the furthest I'd ever walked was to the grocery store. I mean, I'm a city slicker. I'm not a hiking outdoor kind of woman, but I had faith, and I set out on the incredible experience, this incredible journey, and that's what led up to it.
Yeah, how long was this journey, and tell us the healing process you went through and how difficult that was at times, and how you just probably wanted to quit, or the ego came up, or there was so many things that was just hard.
Well, the first thing is I did what how I normally do, and I didn't prepare. So 2 weeks before I was to go, I realized I'm not prepared. So I went to REI, which is an outdoor store, and I just started grabbing everything I could. It was just absurd. And the first thing I realized is I met this fellow there who wanted to help me fit my boots. And I was just really like, okay, the boots are on, let's go. And he was trying to get me to slow down and really give it attention. And I realized how uncomfortable I was putting that much attention on myself. And it was one of my first revelations, because being one of 7, I'd learned the way to be in life is not to need anything. And so here I was in this very grieving, needy, vulnerable place, and still uncomfortable. So I rushed that process, and then we went around the store and I grabbed this and that, and you know, I need the water bottle, and I need the poles, and I need the backpack, and I need the second water bottle, and I need the shirts and the power bars, and by the time I left, I had 3 bags, huge bags of stuff. I was shoving them into my Volkswagen thinking, I'm supposed to carry this stuff on my back? What am I thinking? And I really knew that I was just trying to buffer myself from my own pain and the discomfort that I knew I would be facing. So I got there, I couldn't carry it. I ended up having 2 backpacks. One of all my stuff, and then another one I ended up getting on my back, and I called one cheater, because I couldn't carry it with my knee, but I wanted to be a real pilgrim. So then I had another little one that I called Pilgrim, and these are my 2 backpacks, and I set off with the idea that one would be transported and the other I would carry. The very first day I had to walk over the Pyrenees mountains, and it snowed and snowed all day. And this is at the end of May.
That's crazy.
So
wow.
It was crazy, and wind and rain and snow and freezing. And you know,
Chicago weather. No.
It was like Chicago in January weather. But the interesting thing about the Camino is it absolutely reflected my state of mind. That was the storm I was in. And then I devastated my feet. I devastated them the first day. Every one of my toes, because my boots didn't fit properly. I had boot bag. I just was crawling after the end of the first day. And this was 35 days of about 20 miles to 22 miles a day of walking over 2 mountain ranges. And yet it was interesting. So many feelings and so much unprocessed emotion that I had as a spiritual person shoved because it wasn't congruent with how I wanted to be or live or see myself. Feelings that were some very old. For example, my brother was a drug addict, and the entire time he was alive, I forgave and loved him and prayed for him. But after he died and I started walking, I was angry with him. I thought, how great. You come in, you create chaos, and then you slip out the back door. And your stress killed Dad. And, you know, I just let out all this emotion yelling at him. But after I did, it kind of lifted. Yeah. After I actually felt it and walked with it and didn't judge it, it came out of me. It lifted out of me. And I could feel this lightening of energy. It was very subtle day by day. And then I had the experience with my father. My father loved my mother and protected her so much, and my spiritual self understood and admired that. But on a different level, he felt anything that would threaten her or disturb her or make her insecure would be unwelcome. And that, for whatever reasons, he decided was me. When I was younger, he beat me a lot. And I had forgotten about it because I didn't want to deal with it. But he would beat me a lot, and sometimes beat me into silence, which was just so much of that I just denied. And then as I got older, he decided that my books and my work was not allowed to be discussed at home because he didn't want to. And then, you know, my spiritual self sort of got it. You know, that took care of them. That took care of his comfort. And so when he was alive, I kind of bypassed my emotions. But after he died, it's like letting all the monsters out of the basement. I was just outraged with him. How dare you? What kind of man were you? What kind of father were you? And yet, and these were things I never voiced. I didn't want to. In my mind, I had forgiven them. But I realized that what I really did was I spiritually bypassed these experiences and hid them. So I began to let these things out, and I was surprised that I had these emotions like stuffed in my back and in my bones and in the back of my being, and as it came out in rage, it began to lift. That too began to lift, and I began to find compassion for me, which is something that I really had failed to find. I had held myself to such a high bar my whole life. And after I found compassion for me, I actually then began to feel his spirit and understand, like with my brother, his journey.
On a soul level, you mean?
A deep, deep soul level. And I actually connected with him in a way I never connected with him when he was alive. I began to feel his spirit with me. And I felt for the first time that he loved me. But it was after I went through this whole wave of feeling my own feelings that I had judged to be unacceptable because I was spiritual. And I realized as I walked how we can't pick and choose what's good about us. We have to embrace our whole human experience and see that it's all holy. All of it. It's not that our pain or our grief or our woundings or even our anger is not holy. It is holy. It's part of the wholeness. And I don't think I could have dropped into such a deep level of real love and forgiveness, if I had not come face to face with all these rejected feelings and all these rejected emotions because I had judged them to be unacceptable. So it was stunning. Every day it just kept raining and mud, but the Camino itself is a holy ground. And maybe it's the thousands and thousands of years that people have walked this path and come to walk, to pray, to heal, to ask for forgiveness. But for me, it really was like stepping into another reality. And it erased the lines between present, past lives, physical, spiritual. It was awesome. It was humbling.
Yeah. How do you see now your spirituality or your own spiritual journey? How do you view this? Has it shifted or just reinforced it?
It has shifted. It has deepened. You know, I was really troubled about why was this marriage in my life? Why was it so combative? Why did we never really get along? What were we doing together? And why did it end so stunningly, painfully? And when I was walking, I really walked into my own past lives. And my past lives as a crusader. And my husband's past lives as the priest. And we just picked up a battle that had been unfinished, a power struggle. And I came to understand that that battle was to come to a close. We were to release each other to our own path. And I really found, again, something I had not felt for a long time, is a real affection for the soul that was my husband. Even though I knew our lives needed to separate now. And it was bittersweet. But what I did find is I found, one, relief from thinking. The path itself was so demanding and so rigorous at times, and the weather was so bad that I could only be present. I could only be focused on the moment. And that alone just helped me. You know, your life is like a matrix of beliefs. It's like a system that is kind of insulated. And what happened when I was walking is that matrix cracked open. And I wasn't inside my own perceptions anymore. I was freed, and so many emotions that I'd not felt that were so strong is what kept the matrix intact. It's what held me in this swirl of pain and discomfort. But as I felt my emotions and I honored them and I experienced them without judgment, this complex kind of system that I was stuck inside kind of broke open.
Melted.
And it was really stunning because I had no idea that was going to happen, but it was happening. And I began to realize that if we reject any part of ourselves and we try to only, you know, kind of outsmart life with our spirituality, if we just try to say, you know, it's going to be all good and anything not good is not spiritual, or if it's not good, it's not holy. And that's implied in traditional religion, but it's also implied in spirituality. There's this underlying confusion that, well, you created this and it's your fault and you have your karma, and all this kind of intellectual summarization of, if you're in pain, you did it to yourself, that I feel is incorrect. I think that we have to recognize that human existence is painful because it's temporary. And that our journey as human beings is heroic. Just to step in and immerse ourselves in the human experience is going to involve dissolving our fears, and it's going to involve facing them as a way to dissolve them. We're going to have loss, we're going to have grief, we're going to have our hearts broken. We can't use spirituality to insulate ourselves against pain, which I feel it's seductive to think that it can do that. And we need to embrace it all, even our pain, and learn from it, and trust that on the other side of that, our hearts can open even more. That if we're using our spirituality or in our intellect to bypass our pain or manage it, we're going to cheat ourselves of how to really love at the deepest level, starting with ourselves. So without diving into this pain and seeing its holiness and finding compassion for myself, I really think that forgiveness and compassion for others would have remained more of a noble idea than the profound experience that I feel I possess now.
Do you feel there is a field of love maybe there, and that you're reconnected to it? How connected are you right now to spirit, to love, do you still feel it there, or do you have even a different perception of that?
Well, what I feel is that in accepting my human journey, my emotions, my pain, my grief, my losses, my vulnerabilities, and accepting that when I accepted it then in myself, I could start to accept and really allow for them in others. So a profound love and understanding and acceptance of human beings has settled into my bones, and my heart is so open and so sensitive to the idea that honestly we humans are doing our best. And that when we cause each other pain, we are not conscious of it in the way that because we're in pain. And that I understand and have found the capacity at this level now to really know what forgiveness and acceptance and understanding are, and a real love for myself and all of humanity that I don't think I would have reached had I not had my heart broken open so deeply. And I had not allowed myself to feel and respect my entire human experience so non-judgmentally. The other thing I realized is that in the walking itself, I moved a lot of energy that I somehow had shoved. And believe me, Lilou, it was unconscious. I really did not carry a lot of conscious anger or resentment.
No, because when we met you, having met you many times, I mean, I just love your bubbliness, your joy, your joie de vivre. I mean, you have all that. So,
and it's still there, but there was this other part that didn't feel acceptable to me. But I realized that I had to find acceptance of every part of me, or I could never accept and love every part of everyone else. And the walking and the struggle and the being in the Camino, I met on the Camino myself not just through the journey of walking, but the people I met were so pivotal and perfect. For one thing, the first person I agreed to talk to, his name was Patrick. Now, my husband's name is Patrick. It's like, you're kidding. Kidding that the first person that shows up in my life, and I could feel all this energy flare up, and how I could potentially project it on him and didn't, and yet he brought me so much love and so much groundedness and containment, and he was everything that I had wanted my husband to be, and that he would listen, and he would stay present, and he would be interested, and it was a blessing to have that. And I met another man that kind of followed me and kind of tried to get away from, and it was kind of a weird dynamic. And then at the end of the day, I go into this little albergue in the middle of nowhere. The only other guest is this guy. It's like, okay, what's this about? We had to talk to each other. We're the only two there. And so he was Greek, and somehow we didn't even speak the same language, but he ended up pouring out all this story about how he was molested as a child and how much shame he had. And he kept saying, you're my angel. I dreamt about you before. I saw you before. And so I thought, okay, I can be a container for him. And then he tried to molest me. I was like, I go running away from him. I'm so confused. And then the next morning, I got up so early to get away. And as I was walking, a whole other range of angry emotions flew up, because I had remembered something I'd forgotten. When I was 15, 16, I was sent to do a reading with him, to meet a man to do an intuitive reading, and he put a gun in my head and tried to rape me.
Whoa.
And by the grace of God, I got out of there, but I was ashamed of that experience. I thought it was my fault that I put myself there, so I hid it. I never told anybody. And this comes flying out. And then I realized that man brought that to me so that I could release this piece of confusion and shame and fear and self-judgment. And it was like an exorcism. It was just unbelievable how these are things I had long forgotten, to the point that I hadn't thought about that since then, and forced myself to just get over it, because I interpret, I did this, I created this, I just didn't allow for any compassion for my own trauma. So as I walked, these things began to heal. And every day, my walk got lighter and lighter and lighter.
Yeah.
And by the end, I just felt I was 100% present and available and in love. Inside love. In love.
In love.
Yeah, not outside love, trying to get in. And everybody in my life who had caused me so much pain was in love.
Yeah.
And I was in love with them. And honestly, Lilou, I'm not the same person.
Yeah.
I'm still joyful, I'm still bubbly, but there's some piece of me that's just quietly present. Not pushing for anything. I'm just present, and I'm able to be present with people.
Yeah.
In a way that I feel I can witness them and just have such respect for any human being that's alive.
Because you don't have this stuff. Yeah, you don't have this stuff anymore between you and them.
No, I'm not. I'm not out of touch with love for me.
Yeah.
And I realize that it's so hard to truly be present to another person and let them be who they are and see them in the myriad of facets of who they are, and appreciate that. If I won't allow it for me, I couldn't really witness you, all of you, accurately, and that means I would miss you. I would miss the gift of you. Yeah. And now I feel that I'm available to really receive the gift of people. It just takes my breath away.
Yeah. And this is, to me, that's when we're just really living this spiritual experience. Then we're being ourselves with our fault, with our weaknesses, but just honoring and having so much compassion that having another human being in front of us is just the most beautiful thing. And having somebody, to me, that is authentic like you is very, it creates such a beautiful flow of energy between two people that are real, and you just want to embrace this journey even deeper. So thank you for the courage that it takes to share this.
You know, Lilou, the one thing I do want to say is that, especially, I want to say this to women, that as women, we've been so conditioned that there are things about us as women that are not acceptable, like our needs. You know, women have been conditioned, me along with everyone else, to be the giver and not really need much. And we've been told, you're so good because you don't need much. Or our anger. I mean, the world doesn't have any acceptability for a woman in anger. You know, we're called bitches and dismissed and vulgarized, and the world is also very afraid of grief. You know, grief, and we want to hurry it up, and we've given these messages that imply that being in grief is something we need to get over instead of just be in, as part of our human holiness, that our anger, our needs, our grief, our pain is holy. It's not the fault in us. It's part of the holiness of us. And that I really do see that it's not like, well, the good stuff is the good stuff and we'll accept the bad stuff. My new perspective is it's all good stuff. It's all important. It's all full of grace. All of it.
Especially with the gift that there is behind those challenges. And
that we are shamed for having these human vulnerabilities. Men have it shamed differently if they have needs, or if they're sensitive, or if they have tears. We're shamed for our human experience. And I really feel part of my new mission is to help alleviate the shame that's been painted over us, and the conditioning that would lead us to believe that these vulnerable experiences in our human temporary journey are less than holy. They are holy. They are holy, and we need to create space for that without judgment. It's so important for us. How are we going to heal anything if we don't accept our own humanity?
Yeah, exactly.
We can't. We can't. We'll be afraid of it. If we don't accept it, it means we're afraid of it, and we're trying to get over it instead of embody the holiness of being a human being.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Sonia, for this really authentic sharing yourself as you do. I just love it. Love connecting with you, and thank you for putting this book out, Walking Home. Huh? From the humbled, what is the subtitle from the?
It's Walking Home, a pilgrimage from humbled to healed.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Sonia. I send you so much love.
All my love
and
to
blessings.
You. You're gorgeous. You're radiant. You're a bright beautiful light on the planet, and I'm always honored to be with you.
Thank you, Sonia. Me too. Much love and many blessings on this El Camino that continues.
Absolutely. If I want to say anything to people, you don't have to walk the Camino to get to this place of peace. Just walk with yourself with love and acceptance, and you'll achieve the same experience.
Beautiful.
Okay, thank you, Lilou.